He was 2. He had just turned 2.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, and I'm curious, how could a 2-year-old overdose on fentanyl? What happened?
He wasn't being his surroundings. He wasn't in safe surroundings.
Yeah.
And, the people that he should have trusted,
Yeah.
they didn't take life seriously. And in result, he lost his.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it
That was so.
yeah, it has, like I said, it has changed my life. But it has given it just a different kind of purpose.
Hello and welcome to the ITV. I'm Mary Murerwa. I'm with Yusto Hanyurwa on the camera, and today we have an amazing guest. We have an incredible lady with an amazing story she's going to share with us. On the ITV, we tell the stories that transform lives, and today she's going to tell her personal story, which I believe is going to transform somebody's life out there. But before I let her introduce herself, let me first take this opportunity to thank all our viewers, our audience, our people who have subscribed to this channel. Please keep subscribing and supporting us because it makes a lot of sense. It means a lot to us. Now, help me to welcome her on the ITV, and we're going to start with her introducing herself, and we go deep into her story. Hello, Miss Kiona.
Hello.
Please, would you introduce yourself to us as we get to hear your story?
I'm Kiona. I'm originally from New Jersey. Mm-hmm. I am a mother of 5 and ready to tell my story.
All right. We can't wait to hear your story. And now let us first know how does your story start? Let's go deep into it. Where does it start from? How is it? Let's go step by step into your story and discover who you are and what is, your story all about.
Where it starts from many places, but where I would say it started from that I began to realize life for what it was. Had to be the passing of my grandmother when I was 16. Okay. And that was it was a cultural shock. It was because my grandmother was my protector. She
So you were living with your grandma when you were 16?
My mother and my grandmother.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so when she passed, it was like a veil was uncovered over my eyes. I saw life for what it really was. Yeah. All the uglies, all the monsters, all the harsh reality of it, because she made everything pretty, and so that's where it began. Mm-hmm. That's when it happened.
When you're talking about seeing the harsh reality of life or the monster or the reality of what life had, what do you mean? What was that reality?
That was more so the first time I became aware of my mother's addiction, because it was just me and her at that point. Yeah. So I had to see the things that my grandmother shielded me from. Oh. And, taking that responsibility also with raising my sister, because my mother had my little sister when I was 15. Mm-hmm. So she's my only sibling, and we're 15 years apart. Yeah. So with recognizing my mother and her addiction, I had more responsibility with raising my little sister. So she was more like my child than my little sister. Yeah. I would go to school, I would go to work, and make sure she was taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Now that your grandmother has passed away and you're with your mother who's addicted, you have this little sister of yours you're taking care of. How was life like after your grandmother's death?
It was harder because I no longer was able to have a teenage life. Yeah. Where other people would be worried about, football games, parties and stuff. I had to make sure my sister was fed. She had her, she was bathed. She ate before she went to sleep and stuff like that before I can go outside and hang out with my friends. So I immediately became an adult.
So take us through your life after, like, your grandmother has passed away, and you're living with your mom who's addicted, and you have this little sister that you had to take care of. Like, you became her mother, in other words. Take us through that kind of life. Take us through that journey.
I immediately developed responsibilities. I had no choice. My focus was on the security of my sister. That was my baby. Shortly after my grandmother passed, my mom got sick, and so she ended up being in the hospital for like 3 months. And that's when I was responsible for taking my sister to daycare in the morning. Then I would go to school. Then after school, I would go to work. I had a friend that would pick my sister up from daycare and watch her.
How old are you at this point? You're 16?
I'm 16.
You're working? Mm-hmm. What were you working? Like, what kind of job were you working?
It was like a little telemarketing job. Something around in the neighborhood that all the teenagers so it was. I believe I was calling people to get them to buy newspapers.
Like a salesperson, kind of?
So, and it was only for a couple of hours. It was after I got home from school. And during that time, one of my best friends, she would babysit my sister until I came home. And I came home, and it was the same routine. So. Yeah.
Now, okay, so you came home, same routine, you're taking care of your young sister. So what followed? What was the kind of life that followed from? So for how long did you do that? So how did your sister grow up, and even yourself, because you were still a baby, you were still a kid. I mean, you were a teenager. So how was life like?
I know at one point in time after my mom was sick and she was in the hospital for 3 months, so I was doing it by myself for that long. My family that was still in New Jersey, they at one point they wanted to send for me to come out there with them because my mom was in the hospital. So I'm okay with the idea of coming out there as long as my little sister came with me, and they told me no because we have two different fathers. And I told them, okay, well, if she's not coming, I'm not coming. Like that it didn't compute in my mind to separate us. So that really solidified that protection, that security I had over her. That was the bulk of my teenage years, from the time I was 16 to 18 until I met my boyfriend and I had my first child. And at that point, I graduated high school with a scholarship, but because I now had my own baby, financial responsibility was more important than school. So I let my scholarship, go to the wayside, and I relocated back to New Jersey for a while, and just continued the mother thing from my sister.
Yeah. So when did you meet your boyfriend? At what age? And so when you got to live with your boyfriend and having your own child, how was life? Let us talk a little bit about your baby sister's life. So when you left and you stayed with your boyfriend, how did she survive? Who did she stay with? How was life for her? Let's talk about that, and then we're gonna come back to your own story.
So my mom was able to curb her addiction. So because her being in the hospital and being sick, she involuntarily, became sober because of her hospital stay. So my sister still stayed at home with my mom. My mom was she wasn't never neglectful, but she was more in tune with raising my sister now. However, because of the bond me and my sister had, whenever she would do something wrong, my mom would threaten her about calling me. She would get scared and start crying, and I'm 3,000 miles away. But she was okay. She was young. She was about 3, so she was still a little baby. But she was okay.
And now so your sister now is staying with your mom, and you are going to stay with your boyfriend. At what age, when did you get your first child?
Well, I had my daughter when I was 18. I was like 2 months shy from 19. And actually, when I went to New Jersey, I went to New Jersey to go stay with my father and my father's side of the family. My boyfriend, my daughter's father, he actually got arrested and went to prison while I was 2-3 months pregnant with her. So he wasn't there when I had her, and he came home when she was about 2 years old. That was her first time meeting him. And then
yeah, life continued from there. So when he came home, did you go to stay with him?
I did for a while. We tried to continue where we left off at. It worked for a while. Well, quite a while, because I had 2 more children. So we tried to make it work, but unfortunately it didn't. However, I got 3 beautiful kids from that relationship. So. Yeah.
And I know at some point you also did drugs, right? So how did that come about?
So me and my children's father, our relationship was abusive. He was very abusive. There was times where I've had guns put to my head. I've had black eyes. I've been choked unconscious. Anything to make reality less real, it was worth it, because I didn't want to lose the man that I thought I loved, but I was willing to do whatever it was to make my reality less severe. And as long as it wasn't as true as I believed it to be, it was okay. Because it was, I've had 3 children. It's like we're going to be like this for the rest of our lives. So that's when my addiction started.
So you kind of got addicted because of the kind of relationship you were living in. And so I want to know who taught you how to use drugs? Was it your boyfriend or your mom?
Well, he sold drugs. So that's how I became aware of the drug life. Even though my mom, for a moment in time, she was in her addiction, it wasn't right in my face as far as what she was doing. It was in my face as far as I know she was doing something. Yes, but to be involved in it, have it around, and see it in my day-to-day life, it was my children's father.
So he was doing drugs himself, right?
Yes.
And could maybe I know you talked about he was put in prison for some time, and was it one of the reasons why he was put in prison?
For drug possession, yes.
And so, how was life for you as a young mother? You're 18, you have 3 children, you're living with a boyfriend, but again you're doing drugs. How was it like? How was life like with, as a young mother with children on drugs? How was life look like?
It started to become full in not all the right places. Being a young mother, it was sort of kind of a norm because of my little sister. So I was already just continuing on the process. However, with the fact of using, I had to start hiding it. So that it became stressful, because you have to keep up this the same image, but you're trying to duck and dodge and do things, and it became hectic. It was heavy. It was I remember a lot of nights just being nervous, waiting for him to be asleep so I can, go do something, making sure that the kids were asleep or something like that. So once you start having to sneak, then you start feeling guilty. You start feeling bad, and that makes you want to do it more. Because you want to hide from those feelings. Yeah. And
I know you were trying to hide, who were you hiding it from? Your boyfriend, your husband, your relatives? Who were you trying to hide it from? Or even your kids?
I was more so trying to hide it from him, my children's father, and my mother.
But they were doing drugs themselves.
Well, yeah, but still, I still wanted to put up, continue my image, continue what everyone's perception of me was. So, yeah, that was, like I said, it does something to you mentally to have to play that mental game. Of pretending to be one person and then trying to find time to be another person. It becomes stressful. It becomes very stressful. And it ultimately had a big effect on me after I had my third child, which was my son. That coupled with, postpartum depression, and it had a very bad effect on me. And I could say I had like a mental breakdown. And I ended up being in the situation where I shot my kid's father. So.
Oh, okay. So now let's get to that. Let's get to that situation now. Well, how was it like? For how long before shooting your children's father? Your ex-husband. How was it like? For how long did you do the drugs while hiding it from him and your mother?
For about 2 years, and I know what led up to that, maybe about 4 or 5 months leading up to that incident. I kept mentioning to my mother and my ex-husband, something's wrong with me, but I don't know what's wrong.
Yet you knew what was wrong, but you didn't just wanted to put it right in their faces.
Well, I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't know how to put it into words. I just knew something wasn't right with me, but I didn't know how to explain it. It wasn't like a cold, or my head hurts or my chest hurt, or I'm coughing or sneezing, but I just knew something wasn't right. I didn't know that it was a mental not right. And with voicing that to them for 4 or 5 months, they kind of looked at me crazy, like, how can something be wrong with you what you don't know? It's like, that doesn't make sense. And I even at one point in time, I cut all my hair off. I cut all my hair off, and so I'm going through these emotions and not knowing what they are and can't explain them. It's not a good feeling, because you don't know how to tell them what's wrong with you. So you hold it, you hide it in, and
they keep asking you, like, they really wanted to know what's going on, what's hurting you, but you don't want to tell them the reality.
And so then at some point they don't take you. They start not taking you seriously. Like, okay, they just hear it goes in one ear and out the other, and it's like, okay, I'm telling you something's wrong, but it's how can I say it's I would say now that I know better, if you ever come into a situation like that where you feel like something's wrong, address it. And if you got to shout it loud, just let's make sure multiple people hear you, because they can possibly save you. So.
Now let's get to that incident where you shot your ex-husband. I know you talked about, like, sometimes you would have the black eyes. So when you did the drugs, what would be like? Would you be fighting? Would you be cursing him? What, like, after using the drugs, what would be like?
It was I would not necessarily get violent. What would cause the violence is I would begin to question him more about little things that he was doing, whereas before I would just keep it to myself. So it, in a way, it gave me more of a voice, but it gave me a voice about not the good things, things that he didn't want to be called out on. So that's what led to a lot of the physical altercations, and there were lots of them. I've had my jaw dislocated. I mean, there were lots of them, and so with that that incident, we had a fight, and we had my mom. She was, because we was in her house. She was there, and she broke it up, and so he ended up leaving, and of course, thinking that you're in love and you have big fighting matches, and one person leaves, the next thing you know, you're calling them, telling them come back. So it was a cycle with us.
So what was, like, now we are talking about that incident. What had caused the fight?
So the night before, we had a fight, and we kind of made up, and we stayed all night on the phone talking. We were talking about getting married, going to the justice of the peace, and we stayed on the phone for hours until about 7 o'clock in the morning.
Was he with you in the house, or he was somewhere else?
He was somewhere else. He was at his mom's house because we had the fight, so we were separate. Okay, and so, when we ended up getting off the phone because I had a doctor's appointment to go to. So I was getting ready to go to the doctor's appointment, and when I was leaving, I went outside. I seen my car had a flat tire. And this is my first car with, like, low-profile rims and stuff like that. So the first thing I did was call him, and he didn't answer. And that was a trigger for me because I usually knew when he didn't answer the phone when I called, he was either with another female or so. Needless to say, that went So now I'm calling him. I'm calling him back to back. I end up getting a new tire for my car, but now I'm dead focused on finding.
Why is he not picking you up?
Yes. Yeah. So like I said, I mentioned that we had a fight the night before. It was because I had went through his phone and I seen messages with another female. So I ended up calling her, and she answered the phone, and she told me, yeah, he's here, and yes, all that messy stuff. So as I'm talking to her, only thing I'm focused on was having her put him on the phone, because in my mind that would confirm it, that I would know the truth. Yeah. And so he never got on the phone. He never said anything. And so he did end up calling me, and he wasn't at the girl's house. He was down the street from where we live. So I was in my car. I turned around and I headed back in the direction where he was, because my interest wasn't her no more. So when I pulled up to where he was down the street from our house, I had a 9mm gun. Now I've had it, and I was just outraged, because again, we had just had the conversation of getting married. We have 3 kids together. I mean, my son was only 2 months old at the time. So I got out the car, and this was like 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So I got out the car. I had the gun in my hand, just broad daylight. I went to the door where he was, and I'm banging on the door, and he opens the door, but he only cracks it open, and he sticks his head out, and I'm telling him to come outside, and he's like, put the gun away, and so I told him no. So he's like, okay, I'm not coming outside if you don't put the gun away. I'm like, okay. So I turn around, I walk back towards my car, and I sit on the hood of my car, but I put the gun on on the hood, so I'm just sitting there. And he comes outside, and he approaches me, and it's a height difference between me and him. So he's about 6'2". So I stand up to him, and I'm fussing and yelling at him, and I can't remember exactly what I was saying. But he's standing, we're face to face, but he's not looking at me. He's like looking over my head. So so in my mind, he's not taking me seriously. He's not taking me seriously at all. So again, I just remember looking up at him, yelling at him, and I had the gun in my hand, but at some point he goes to snatch it out my hand, and it goes off twice. And so when the next thing, only thing I remember is he fell on me, because he was much bigger. So he fell, we both fell, and I remember standing up, and like my leg was, it hurt, but at that point I want to say I mentally blacked out, because I don't remember nothing. I remember him getting up, and he was like, I think you shot me. And he pulled up his, like, the sleeve of his jacket, and he was like, do you see any blood? And I remember shaking my head no, because I didn't see any. And I just walked off, and it was like a little wall along the street. Where my car was parking, I just sat there. And he got up, and he went into the house that he was in, and I just sat there. I was literally maybe like 2 minutes away from my house. I sat there. I heard the sirens. I heard them when they was far away, and I heard them get closer and closer and closer. And when they pulled up, one of the first officer that pulled up, he approached me, and he says, do you know why I'm here? That's the first thing he asked me. He says, do you know why I'm here? And I just nodded my head, and I'm like, yes. He said, we had calls that there was a shooting. Do you know where it happened? And I sort of kind of just like mentioned over my shoulder, like, yeah, over there somewhere. And he said, were you involved? And I just nodded my head like, yeah. He's like, okay. He was real nice and, gentle with me, and he cuffed me, but he cuffed me in the front, and he put me in the car, and he was like, I'm gonna roll the window down for you so you can have some air. And so later I found out that, he had already known it was me. He had the description of me, but he knew from, I guess, my facial expression that I wasn't in the moment right there. I spaced out. So and I appreciate that he because it could have went so bad. But yeah, that's how that happened, because he was cheating.
So you walking to him with the gun in your hands, what was going through your mind? Did you pick up the gun, walking to him with the intention of shooting him, or something? What was running through your mind?
No, I never had intentions on hurting him. I wanted him to emotionally feel what he does to me.
Yeah.
Because I could never physically hurt him the way he could physically hurt me. I wanted to scare him.
Yeah.
I wanted him to have that fear. Yeah. But my intentions was never to hurt him. I mean, this is the man I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. Yeah. But yeah, no, I didn't intend to hurt him. It happened, but no. But that's not what the police believed, and they actually charged me with premeditated attempted murder. Oh. Yeah.
So you fighting with him for the gun. Do you know how it happened? Did you actually get the gun and show him, or you did it unconsciously?
I don't know. And that's what I'm saying. That's honestly, because I don't remember anything after that part. I remember I had it in my hand. I never raised it and pointed it at him. It was in my hand, but it was pointed to the ground. But again, like I said, he I don't know if he thought he was going to snatch it out my hand or reach for it, because he wasn't scared that I had it in my hand. He knew I wasn't going to do nothing to him. Yeah. But I also later found out that with that type of gun, they have what they call hair triggers, very sensitive to pull, and that's why it went off twice, because the third chamber actually got jammed. So it would have continued firing all the shots, but it got stuck on the third bullet. Yeah. So that's why he only ended up getting shot twice. Yeah. So, yeah.
So I know at one point when we were talking about this, you said he was in the house. Mm-hmm. So what happened after that?
I know they figured out what house he was in, and because he was shot, I seen them when they put him in the ambulance, and that just crushed me, because I didn't want to, that wasn't ever my intention. But he had one bullet that was lodged in like the left side of his groin area, and the second one grazed under his arm. And so that's why they kind of determined that he may have been trying to pull it out of my hand because of the trajectory of the bullet. But yeah, that's how they found him. And when they found him, he had drugs on him. So, and he was on parole from being, released from prison. So, yeah, it was interesting though, because he actually got away from the hospital because they never handcuffed him to the bed. It's it's weird, weird story, but yeah. So he was running from the law for a while after that.
Mm-hmm. So did he survive?
Yes, he did.
Mm-hmm. He's now still alive?
No, he isn't.
He isn't? What did he die from?
He passed away 2 years ago, and they say from a heart attack. He was a big man, and he was sick, and his mom just found him in his room, and the coroner's report said it was from just his heart, overworking. Yeah, he had a heart attack.
Yeah. So, sorry for your loss. So, like at this point when you shot him, how old were your children? How old were your kids? So how did you come to terms with that and talking about it with your kids? Did you ever tell them what happened, or you still have that story untold to them?
I know I've told it to them before. It would probably be different than how I would tell them now because they're all much older.
Yeah.
But they know they know what happened. They know that mom didn't just go out on the shooting rampage and go for their father. But yeah, they know what happened, and it was it wasn't difficult for me to speak about because I know where my heart and my head was at that time.
Yeah.
I was hurt. I was hurting. This is the man that I love constantly, and he's still cheating on me. And, like I said, we have 3 kids together, and I just could not understand what it was that I wasn't getting right. So it's never been hard for me to talk about because I wasn't intending on, doing anything to him. I just wanted to scare him. Yeah.
Now that the police, the officer found you with a gun after shooting him. So what was it like? What was the next thing? What happened next?
So they, I went to, the jailhouse and spoke with the interrogators. And in my mind the whole time, I just believed if I told them the truth about, it was just an accident. It wasn't supposed to happen. It was a mistake. They would let me go home. That didn't happen. They charged me with premeditated attempted murder. I went to jail in maximum security for 3 months until I was bonded out, and I fought my case from the streets. I ended up what was a good, if you consider that a good factor in my case. They didn't have my victim because he escaped from the hospital. Needless to say, just from a result of that, I ended up doing getting sentenced to 2 years of prison. I only did 17 months, but it changed my life. It changed my life. It gave me more purpose, because I refused to be in a situation again where I was faced with the reality of not seeing my children grow up. I didn't want to watch my children, grow up from prison. So
before that, maybe when you were in prison, what were your children? Who was taking care of them?
They were with family. They were with family members.
Okay.
So once I came home and connected, got back with my children, and I ended up marrying somebody that I met when I was a teenager. So we've known each other for about 23, 24 years. And just rebuilding. A lot of trial and error, but both of our endpoint, our goal is to establish a foundation for our children so they won't have to go through the same struggles and loss and stuff that we've been through. My little sister, who's now an adult, she became pregnant with her first child in 2019. And so I remember when she first told me, I cried, and I was, angry and mad and everything, because with me and our family, I'm the oldest living female. I have no aunties, no grandmothers. My mom is passed away. So it's a lot of responsibility when you realize, everybody in your family depends on you, just you. And so when she had her baby, she had a little boy, and he was the first one he's the 4th boy in 4 generations in our family. We have nothing but girls. But he was like a breath of fresh air. That little boy. He changed my life. He made me realize, or he brought understanding about additional love that I have in me that I didn't know that I had anymore. I thought I had given it all to my kids. So my sister at the time, once she had him, she wasn't mentally mature enough yet to separate her want to still live a young life and be a mother. And so, I pushed and fought and hit, but her, so much with trying to get her to realize that, your life isn't yours no more. You have a baby. So I took on the responsibility of raising him. So now I have a baby, that's shaking up the household. Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Yeah. So you told me, I know off the camera, you told me that the incident that happened a year ago that completely changed your life, and you want to share that with us?
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
Christmas. This was of 2021. Like I told you, me and my husband and my oldest daughter, we were raising my nephew. And so Christmas time, we let him, be with his mom, who ended up letting him go with his dad. And a couple of days after Christmas, he got a hold of some fentanyl and overdosed and passed away. And that was a game changer. Nobody ever expects, a child to one day be there and the next day not. So, yeah, it was, it has been extremely difficult, but when you go through something like that, I've lost my mom. I told you my kid's father has passed away, and he was my first love, and I took that extremely hard. But when my nephew died, it breaks you in areas that you didn't even know existed. And that's when you find out really if the meaning of life. And also too, it gives you it opens up those thoughts of if you really want to go on or not. It gives you a new realization of your purpose. So what I've managed to do, and thank you, what I'm still learning how to do is take the joy that he gave me and reverse it and honor him by giving it out. And you never realize how in a short amount of time how much meaning somebody can, how much meaning somebody can give your life. And he was only here for 2 years, but it's like he gave me a lifetime of knowledge without even verbally saying it. So
how old was he?
He was 2. He had just turned 2.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, and I'm curious, how could a 2-year-old overdose on fentanyl? What happened?
He wasn't being his surroundings. He wasn't in safe surroundings. And the people that he should have trusted, they didn't take life seriously. And in result, he lost his. So it
that was so
it has, like I said, it has changed my life. But it has given it just a different kind of purpose. Because I feel like one of the luckiest aunts in the world to had him. So I can't. It would be horrible to not share that with other people. The joy that he gave everybody that he encountered. I can't keep that to myself. I can't keep that to myself.
So like you're talking about the joy that he gave, the kind of light that he shed in the house, or to those people that were surrounding him, people who knew him. What was like what I mean, what experience, whenever you're thinking about him, what comes to your mind?
His smile. His smile, and he was incredibly smart. I think before he was one, he knew his alphabets, he knew his colors, he knew his animals, and I know right after he turned 2, because his birthday is November 8th, and I had him it was right after Thanksgiving, and he was just in the room playing, him and my daughter, and he was counting backwards. And I remember looking at him, I said, oh, we count backwards now. He just turned 2. But he was so full of life. He laughed and smiled at everything. Yeah. Everything. Yeah.
How is his mother doing right now? Did she come to terms with her loss?
She didn't. It actually gave, I would assume that it gave her reason to go, more into that disconnect, as far as not being in touch with reality and living in her own, makeshift bubble. Ultimately, 6 months after his passing, she got arrested, and she's,
For that incident?
well, no, not associated with that, but just some just some young juvenile things that her and a large group of her friends, were being accused of doing, and she's currently in this it's been almost a year. But I have a tendency to like to take bad situations and find the good and the positive, even if it's just for my sanity. And so, one way that I take this situation is that it ultimately is, saving her life. Yeah. Because if she was to still been on the streets and processing the passing of her son, her firstborn, and it was the same month that my mom passed away. It made the 10-year mark that my mom passed away. And
same day?
My mom passed away December 8th, of 2011, and my nephew passed away December 29th of 2021. So, for it to be earth-shattering for me, I still can't imagine, her, because she was 13 when my mom passed. So the loss for her, she was going in a bad direction, and I don't want to imagine what it could have been like had she not gotten arrested. Yeah. So I would like to think about it like it possibly has saved her life. Yeah. So yeah.
I can imagine. As we are coming to the close of our show, what kind of a message do you have for young mothers, for girls, for parents? Talk to them. Look straight into the camera and talk to them. Tell them your mind, what you have in your mind.
Whatever it is that you may be going through, the darkness that you may be walking in, even though you feel like you're by yourself, that nobody knows what you're going through, or they understand the feeling, or they couldn't understand, somebody knows. Don't take the walk by yourself and suffer the fears and just the darkness, because there's somebody that's willing to walk it with you and help you, bring you out on the other end. It's a big, scary world, but there's people that are willing to protect you. They're willing to show you that it's okay. You can get through it. You can get through it. Yeah. There's nothing that you can't get through. In the moment, you feel like you can't, you don't want to, but it's worth getting through it. You can get through it.
Yeah. I know, maybe just before we end the show, I know that a lot of people, like you told me off the camera, that people have different versions of about what happened, that incident when you shot your ex-husband, and now you wanted to come out clean and clear about that. Do you think your version is being heard right now?
Yes, because when somebody hears it, oh, I shot my kid's father, the first thing you want to think about is like, oh, she was just some some bad, perception of it. And again, it wasn't, my intent wasn't never to harm him. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with this. This is the father of 3 of my children. I couldn't think of nothing but my life with him. It was a move to instill fear.
Yeah.
That's I just wanted him to emotionally feel the pain that he was causing me. Yeah. So.
Yeah. All right. Maybe before we close, I just wanted to give you this opportunity, and you share whatever you think that I haven't asked you, but you kind of feel that you really wanted to touch on it.
No, I think you pretty much touched on anything. Just my goal has never changed, and what drives me are my children, and making sure that when I'm not here no more, they're taken care of. They're okay. They won't struggle. They won't have no fears, and that will continue to drive me till I'm not here no more. So.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kiona, for sharing with us your story. It's amazing. It's an incredible story, like I said. And I hope whoever will watch your story will get to learn something. And I hope for next time, if we call you, if we invite you again, you're gonna come, you're gonna get that short time in your busy schedule and come and share with us. Yeah, we are here to build our communities. We are here to share the stories that impact lives, that transform lives, and I believe your story is one of them. So please, next time if we invite you, I hope you're gonna find a short time for us and share your story with us. We are with another story, maybe not this one, but maybe another one with us.
Absolutely.
All right. Absolutely. And we say thank you to our viewers for this time, and I hope one or two, or a lot of you will pick one thing or two from Kiona's story. And yeah, thank you so much for being with us. Until next time, bye-bye.